Hey y'all, hey, and welcome to Joan Conclusions with me, Christina V. Thank you so much for coming and joining me today. If you haven't already, go ahead and click that subscribe button and help me get to 1K. Today's case is very recent and controversial. This case is about another no-knock warrant. Let's discuss. On February 3rd, just before 5 a.m., SWAT team officers in Pensacola, Florida, arrived at a home on 7th Street to execute a no-knock warrant. As they were preparing to enter the residence, Corey Marioneaux Jr., 24, and his two children, ages 1 and 3, were inside of the home sleeping. Hearing the commotion and believing that somebody was trying to break into his home, Corey grabbed his gun and fired one shot in an attempt to protect his family. Corey was immediately detained and taken to the police station. Meanwhile, his children were placed in the back of a police car while officers contacted their mother, Moya Dixon. Moya jumped in her car and rushed over to the scene to get her children. When she got there, she found her youngest son injured, finding that he had allegedly fallen face first out of the back of the patrol car. It is said that an officer was sitting in the patrol car with the two children, but got out of the car in order to assist somebody else. When he was going to get back into the car, the 1-year-old was unknowingly leaning against the door, so when the officer opened the door, the boy fell out and hit the ground. The baby had bruises on his forehead, scratches on his cheeks and nose, and an abrasion between his top lip and nose. His mother said his face was covered in blood when she arrived, which leads me to believe that they did nothing to help his injuries. They didn't clean him up, see if he was okay, anything. Moya said the police tried to downplay the boy's injuries and dissuade her from going to the hospital. They told her that they had already had EMS check him out. As any mother would, she immediately took her child to the hospital, where doctors said that he wouldn't have any lasting effects from the fall. About a week after the incident, the police chief visited Moya and the children. He apologized for the injuries that her youngest son received and also promised that he would figure out what exactly happened. She is planning to sue the police department. She feels that the officers tried to cover up the fact that her child was injured and that they need to be held accountable. Though the children may physically be okay, their mother worries about the psychological trauma that they may face. She said that the youngest child, who sustained the injuries, had just begun walking, taking his first steps before this incident happened. But now she claims that the boy will not walk. Also, she says that he cries more often and for longer periods of time. Her oldest son has started seeing a mental health counselor as he saw everything. He followed his father out of the home as he surrendered himself to police. Moya says after that day, he would only say, "My daddy had to walk out of the house with his hands up and put his nose on the ground," over and over again, which is what prompted her to take him to counseling. Corey has been charged with attempted murder of a law enforcement officer for the single shot that he fired, as he actually struck an officer, but his shield kept him from being injured. Once he realized it was the police in his home, he put the gun down and put his hands up. A member of the SWAT team did return fire, but thankfully no one was struck by any of those bullets. A lawyer says that he will attempt to have the charges dropped, stating that Corey thought he was protecting himself and his children from an intruder. Corey does legally own his firearm and is allowed to carry and use it. This, coupled with the element of surprise of having your door knocked down while you're sleeping, is more than enough reason to have the charges dropped, according to his lawyer. Corey also does not have a criminal record and is very active in his community. Police said they were at Corey's home with a high-risk search warrant looking for evidence related to a shooting that occurred on January 22nd, though they would not state if Corey was a suspect or what exactly they were looking for in his home in connection to that case. They also said that the SWAT team knocked loudly and announced themselves by saying "search warrant" for about 10 seconds before using a battering ram to enter the home. Policy says that officers serving a warrant must wait a full 15 seconds before forcibly entering a home. Corey's lawyer says that this is a violation and another reason to have the charges thrown out. But even if they are not, it is very likely that the case will be dismissed due to Florida's stand your ground law. In the case of Breonna Taylor, who was killed by police performing a no-knock warrant in 2020, her boyfriend shot at police in his confusion and was also charged with attempted murder of a police officer. About a year after the initial incident, the charges were dismissed once the case was in front of a judge. These no-knock warrants are getting out of hand and need to stop. Thankfully, in this case, nobody was killed, but they're becoming far more frequent and far more deadly. Earlier this month, on February 2nd, I believe, a 22-year-old man in Minneapolis named Amir Locke was killed when police bust into his home in the early morning hours to perform a no-knock warrant. When they bust into his home, he was also waking up out of his sleep, and he reached for his licensed and legal gun and pointed it at police before they gunned him down. And as of right now, those officers aren't being held responsible. This seems to be just another way for law enforcement to kill Black people without any accountability. We've got to do better. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Talk shit if you got to. Let me know what you think about these no-knock warrants. Do you think that they are race-based? I do know that no-knock warrants do occur in other people's homes besides Black people's homes, but it seems more prevalent that when it's in a Black person's home that the person passes away or is killed. I don't know if that's because of the way that the news reports stories or if Black people are really being killed at a higher rate in these instances. I'm going to do my research into that, though. Either way, whether it's Black people, white people, green people, or orange people, these no-knock warrants should be illegal. There should be no reason why you bust into somebody's home at 5 o'clock in the morning for a search warrant. Not something active like you go in and somebody's being held captive or an emergency situation, but just a situation where you're searching for evidence. You're going to bust into their home at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning where there's children present, where there's people sleeping, and you just immediately start shooting. It doesn't make sense. And it seems like the only reason for you to do something such as that would be to kill the people in the home. Because why would you sneak up on somebody at 5 o'clock in the morning to serve a search warrant? Thank you again. Thank you. I love you. Be great, be you. I'll see you soon.